Very good evening, friends. Meeting again in the session of Homoeopathic Posology from Stuart Close, the chapter number 13. Very important chapter from the Stuart Close, where he has tried to explain the concept in detail. He tried his level best to simplify the things and making it clear the concepts of material doses and concepts of dynamic doses. And then after explaining that in thorough, after explaining the science behind it, then he started explaining about the exact choice of the potency. And while choosing the dose exactly, what are the points which are essential to look for, on the basis of which you are going to think about the potency? Those he has highlighted, and those we have learned in last lecture. The 5 points are there. The first one is always to be a susceptibility of the patient. Number two is the anatomical seat of the disease, where exactly the disease is situated. The number 3 point, which is very important, is nature and intensity of the disease. Number four is the stage and duration of the disease. That's what he has explained. And lastly, the point which is generally overlooked, what the previous treatment have been done by the patient earlier for that disease, on the basis of which you can select the potency. Here, he has explained all those 5 points in detail, and he starts with the first point, that is the susceptibility of the patient. So let us open your book, page number 192, and start with the first point, the susceptibility of the patient. Those who are students over there attending the session, this is the mm, full question on susceptibility. You can get the whole answer of it in this specific part. Susceptibility of the patient, this is generally and rightly regarded as the most important guide in the selection of the dose. It is important to have some means of gauging at least approximately the susceptibility of the patient. So first point to be considered while considering the dose of the patient is always the susceptibility, and there are certain points on the basis of which you can understand whether the susceptibility is normal, whether it is high, or whether it is low. So which are the factors which satisfy or which modifies the susceptibility? Susceptibility to a medicinal action is only a part of or phase of general susceptibility of the organism to all stimuli. By analogy, as well as by experience, we are led to consideration of main factors which modify and express the susceptibility in general. So there are many factors which you have to take into consideration while considering the susceptibility of the patient, and out of which are most important, on which you will consider what type of susceptibility patient is present in the patient, that we have to learn. He explains over there, there are 6 important points which he has mentioned thereafter, which modifies the susceptibility. Susceptibility varies in different individuals according to number one, right over there, number one is age, number two is the temperament, number three is the constitution. Number four is the habits. Number five is the character of the disease. And number six is the environment. So all those 6 points are very, very essential to look for, on the basis of which you are going to judge what type of susceptibility is there. Age, it varies. In infants and children, the susceptibility is always to be a very, very high. Susceptibility is always high in infants and children. Then it till the adolescence, it is very high. As patient goes into the adult age, it becomes moderate. And then again in old age, when he turns toward the old age, generally the susceptibility becomes less or low. Second point which he explains over there is related with the temperament. And temperament is also one of the important thing on the basis of which you can think about the susceptibility. 4 important temperaments are there. The first one is phlegmatic. Phlegmatic means those children or those persons who are little bit obese, slow, dull, sluggish. Generally, the susceptibility is low. The second temperament, which is the nervous temperament. Nervous temperaments means on the tip of their nerves. They are very active, alert, immediately reacting. The susceptibility is always high. Sanguine temperament is the third temperament where it is called to be a bloody hot temperament. Again, the susceptibility is quite high in sanguine. And the fourth point is the bilious temperament. Generally, the persons who used to do desk work, who used to remain more, or who used to do a sedentary work, those people suffers from certain disorders, bilious disorders, and in such types of persons, the susceptibility is generally low to high, but they react in an instantaneous manner, in an angry manner to the peoples when they suffer from such bilious attacks. So susceptibility varies from individual to individual. The third point, constitution. Yes, again here the constitution, if you will take into consideration the Gravol's three constitutions. The first one, which is called to be a carbonitrogenide, which is related with the soric miasm. The second one, hydrogenoid, which is related with the psychotic miasm. And third is oxygenoid, related to the syphilitic miasm. Out of which carbonitrogenide generally have moderate or normal to little bit high susceptibility. Psychotics or the hydrogenoid constitution little bit low susceptible state. And those where syphilitic miasm is dominant, the oxygenoid constitution, the generally susceptibility is very, very high. There are two ends, either it is too high, either it is too low. That is the syphilitic or oxygenoid. Habits, the habits always decreases the susceptibility. Temporarily it elevates, increases, but later it produces in secondary action the dullness, and that's why habits generally suppresses the susceptibility. Character of disease, that is also important, whether it is acute or chronic. In acute, generally, the susceptibility is always found to be generally high. In chronics, it is generally comparatively low. And last, environment. Environment also makes effect on the human being. So depending upon environment, the person's susceptibility changes. In a dull, sluggish environment, the person becomes dull, the susceptibility becomes low. But in the similar manner, if the environment is quite good, enthusiastic, the susceptibility gets increased. So the reactions of the individual depends upon the environment also, and that is one more factor which you have to take into consideration while judging the susceptibility. The susceptibility of an individual to a remedy at a different times also varies. Underline this sentence. So in a one patient, in a one person, susceptibility is very variable in the morning, in the afternoon, in the evening. So according to timings, it varies. So in the same patient, it varies from time to time. Idiosyncrasy may exist as a modifying factor. That is one more point one must consider. Those persons who are idiosyncratic are nothing but very highly susceptible. If they are very highly susceptible, you have to judge that susceptibility and catch the high potency, but with very infrequent doses. Homeopathy must always be considered. The more the similar remedy, more clearly and positively the symptoms of the patient take on peculiar and characteristic form of the remedy, the greater the susceptibility to that remedy and higher the potency required. Underline this. Many practitioners never understand this. Very clearly, Close has mentioned about it. Many practitioners prescribe low potency in acute states. What he says is very important. More similar the remedy, if you are damn sure about the remedy, more clearly and positively the symptoms of the patient take on the peculiar and characteristic form of the remedy. So your remedy is based upon characteristic symptoms and you are damn sure about remedy. In that case, the greater the susceptibility of the remedy, the higher the potency required. So you're damn sure about, yes, patient requires the Rustox. If you know the patient requires belladonna, you are damn sure, yes, this is the state. And your remedy is very perfect, go for high with infrequent doses. There is no need to give belladonna 30. It will not cause anything. In fact, may aggravate the state. Such conditions one must understand and know. If you are thorough about these concepts, then you will be very frequently prescribed higher potencies if you are damn sure about the remedy. The indefatigable Tsar has very lucidly and beautifully illustrated this point. He remarks an essential difference between the action of low and high potencies, which consists not in their strength or weakness, but in the development of peculiarities of the remedy as we rise in the scale of potency. This is based upon well-known fact that provings of the tincture and lowest potencies of the drug, as a rule, produce only the more common and general symptoms of the drug, not very sharply differentiated from other drugs of its class. It is in the provings of the medium and higher potencies that the special and peculiar character of the drug is revealed by its finer and most characteristic symptoms. Zar illustrates this by the geometrical figure consisting of the number of concentric circles with radii drawn to represent remedies in different stages of potentiation. So he has given the example of JSJ Zar. He has made the things very clear. The thing is that when you prove the remedies either in mother tincture form or in low potencies, they show generally very common features of that remedy. They are common to all individuals, all the provers, and those symptoms never differentiates that remedy from another remedy. Those are generals to the all provers, and because of which it is very difficult to find it out a remedy on the basis of that. What Zar has done, he has created the concentric circles, and he explained over there that in the first phase, there are symptoms which looks very close to each other. If you make a simple circle, you will find the symptomatology which is close to that circle. Then as you go on increasing and you put arrays of different remedies, they are very close to each other when it is small, when you give the small dose, when you give the low potency. When you increase the circle, they gets diversified. If you increase more, they gets more intensified. If you get more very high potency, then they are more diversified. And because of which we can understand that when you go for higher potencies, then it is possible to find it out more finer differences between the remedy during proving. So this is two important thing which one must know and one must understand, that the proving the drugs on the healthy human beings when done in mother tincture form or low potency never gives you clear idea. But if the same remedy, if it has been proved on in the moderate potency or high potency, gives very clear cut differentiating characteristic symptoms of that drug which are necessary in order to differentiate one remedy from the another. So this is the simple example which he has mentioned, and this one must know. There is one question: only mother tincture is used? No, there are constitutional remedies which we used to use in diabetes. Mother tinctures are palliative; they are not curative. So even you are treating the diabetes, if you are giving mother tinctures, you are palliating. They are called to be sugar killers. But in order to treat or cure that patient from diabetes, then you will require a constitutional remedy. That remedy in the potentized form. It is not in mother tincture form. So if you are using the Syzygium jam, if you are using the Cipelandra indica, if you are using the Gymnema sylvestre, these are mother tinctures which decreases the sugar, but they never cures the patient. What requires is the constitutional remedy for that patient. What he further says, in the first to third potency, as shown in innermost circle, where the radii lie close together, similar or related remedies like arsenic, crushed tongues, bryonia, or sulfur have great many symptoms in common. But the higher they progress in the scale of potentiation, the more ready recede from each other, so that each appears more and more distinctly in its peculiar characteristic feature. So you get very close features if you prove the Arsenic, rust, bryonia, sulfur in very low potency. For example, you would have proved it on 3C potency. You will get very minute, very few differences. Otherwise, the features looks very similar to each other. You cannot differentiate. But if you go on proving it in higher potency, definitely you will get certain symptoms which are characteristic to the sulfur only, which are characteristic to the rustox only, which are characteristic to the bryonia only. And then it is possible to differentiate one remedy from another. All narcotics like belladonna, stramonium, or opium, for example, in crude and massive doses, act in the manner equally stupefying, causing death by apoplexy or paralysis. All drastics produce vomiting and purging, etc. It is only in small or potentized doses that their most characteristic differences and action becomes apparent. So see what he is explaining. He has given good example. He has given the examples of narcotics. There are many narcotic remedy in our remedy. Few of them he has illustrated, the belladonna, the stramonium, the opium. In their crude state, if you give them, it has very close relationship that it produces a drowsy state common to all of them. You cannot differentiate belladonna from stramonium from opium in crude state because their actions are very close to each other at that level. When you prove it in potentized form, 30C, 200C or 1M, then you will going to find it out exactly the differences, what belladonna, how belladonna is differing from the stramonium and stramonium is different from the opium. You can very easily differentiate them. And this happens only when you prove the remedies at the in higher or moderate potencies. And this is too important. So when you are very easily able to find it out opium in the patient, you are damn sure your patient requires opium only, finished. Give opium in high potency, one few doses, and it works. It works beautifully. So here you have to understand the concepts very clearly. By continual diluting and succussing, says Zar, remedies get neither stronger nor weaker, but their individual peculiarities become more and more developed. In other words, their sphere of action is enlarged as represented by the concentric circle. So Zar has very clearly mentioned, when you go on increasing the potency, it becomes more and more peculiar, it penetrates more and more, gives the finer presentation of that remedy, with which it is easy to find it out a remedy from the patient. The practical bearing of this on the selection of potency or dose according to Zar is as follows. In a given case where the symptoms are not clearly developed and there is an absence or scarcity of characteristic features, or where two or three remedies seems about equally indicated, susceptibility and reaction may be regarded as low. We give therefore the remedy which seems most similar in low, third to 12 potency. But when symptoms of the case clearly indicated one remedy, whose characteristic symptoms correspond closely to the characteristic symptoms of the case, we give the high potencies, 30, 200, 1000 or higher, according to the prescriber's degree of confidence and the contents of his medicinal case. So both the things he has mentioned, that when you are damn sure about the remedy, then you have to give it in high potency. It depends upon your confidence. That's what that sentence he has mentioned, and that is very important. I will share one example of it. When I came first time to Sangamner, there was one homeopathic practitioner, and we met once, and he started calling me every time. Whenever he sees the patient, he used to call me. One day he called me, Prasad, do you have the Sina? I said, yes, I have Sina. I asked, which potency? Whatever you have, you can give. How can it be? What your patient requires, whether he requires 30, 200, 1M, 10M. He said, I have 10M, but I don't have a daring to give 10M, but I'm damn sure the patient is Sina. So I said, give one dose. If you are damn sure, give the 10M one dose. It is there with you. No, you come to my clinic. So I went over there. And yes, really the child was absolutely cranky, crying for 2 hours and not remaining in the hands of mother or father. He was continuously going from one parent to another parent, and he wants to lie down and tremendously crying, shrieking, everything. All case of typical Sina was there. And he was treated with the medicines deworm by the allopathic practitioner, but it never worked, and he becomes so cranky. So I took the Sina 10M from that fellow, asked him to open the mouth of the child. I put 2 drops of Sina 10M in that child's mouth. It was in 1991 or 92, most probably. And to my surprise, within a span of 2 minutes, the child slept completely in a very calm way. And thereafter, after 3 to 4 hours sleep, when came out of it, he was absolutely a good child. So higher the similarity, higher the potency, higher the susceptibility, higher the potency, and no need to repeat too much. It works so beautifully. But it depends on your confidence, and how the confidence is built. Confidence is built only when you read the philosophies and you understand the philosophy. Without that, it is not possible to understand, yes, this concept is there, higher the susceptibility, higher the potency, less is the repetition. So you have to understand all those concepts very clearly over there. We may slightly modify Zar's advice by suggesting the clear and more positively, the finer, more peculiar, and more characteristic symptoms of the remedy appear in a case, the higher the degree of susceptibility and higher the potency. And this is clear-cut truth. If you are damn sure, yes, this is the remedy, go for high and just watch for the results. You are going to get that. This rule covers more points of requirements to be stated later than appears at first glance. The class of cases to be described later, which require low potencies for their cure, do not, as a rule, represent the finest or most characteristic shadings of the symptoms, which characterize the cases requiring high potency, so that we may pretty safely judge the degree of susceptibility of the patient by the character and completeness of the symptom. So, when we take the case, if it is very clear cut, we get very complete symptoms, we get the peculiar symptoms, we get the characteristic symptoms, then you are damn sure, yes, how the susceptibility of the patient is there, and accordingly higher the potency. But if it is not there, then you have to go for low. Last point in today's session, we're going to finish. Allowance should be made, however, for varying ability of examiners. One man keen of perception, accurate, painstaking, conscientious, and well-trained will see many things in a case which another, not so endowed, will fail to see. And this point is very, very important. If you are a homeopath, all those points should be there with you. The first, keen to perception, you should be able to catch the things very easily. You should be very accurate in your observations. You should be a painstaking, means you should work hard. Conscientious, that your mind should be conscientious, that the thought should be there a sympathetic thought should be there in your mind regarding the patient. And last, you should be very well trained. If these 5 points are there, if these 5 qualities are there with you, then you will definitely find it out exactly the picture of the case. And if you will get very clear-cut picture, then it becomes rather simple to reach to the right remedy and higher the potency. So I think we'll stop over here. Yesterday I have told you that we'll continue with the next lecture, but it is also not possible today. I think we'll stop the materia medica lectures till this week, and directly we'll start with the next week, the materia medica sessions. So there will be no Materia Medica session till this week, end of the week. So that's all for today. Thank you being there, and we'll meet again tomorrow at the same time.
Thank you, sir.
So thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Have a good evening.